I am live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my latest live shenanigans. We do this every Friday, although I'm still trying to work out how this looks going forward. So having a bit of a play with it. I normally go live on my Facebook page on Wednesday afternoons too. Well, I haven't done it the last few weeks. I've been quite busy with the schedule, but trying to work out when the best time is to do it. But regular viewers will know you do get the added bonus of a on the ball city, especially as none of us can sing it in the stands at the moment. I haven't been practicing though. More of a somber on the ball city there. I guess because we're all in lockdown again, aren't we? Obviously, primarily, I hope you're all keeping safe and well. And sane, really. It's been I mean, I feel it. It's my job, but it's one of those weeks where you're a bit like, well, football. Where does football fit into everything that's going on? But we're here. Football is back at the weekend, of course. Norwich hosting Swansea, a game I am really looking forward to, and then it's an international break. I'm off for a little bit, which will be nice as well. But there'll be lots of football going on all around Europe, which is, of course, a great idea in the middle of the continuing global pandemic. Get any questions you want in. I can see them popping through now. I will go through them. We have the preamble, and the preamble is to allow you time to get your questions in. So we will kick off at 5:05, I reckon. So get them in. Anything you want to ask, it can be Norwich City related, but it doesn't have to be. If there's something else you want to ask. Hey, at the moment, we have such limited contact with everyone, certainly in person, we might as well make the most of the digital contact. So if you want to ask me anything, Netflix recommendations, whatever, or maybe you want to tell me something, I could do with the contact too. So please get in touch. And of course, so primarily Norwich are in action tomorrow. They are hosting Swansea, who, as I said, are second in the championship at the moment, Norwich third. So it promises to be a cracking game at Carrow Road. I'm really looking forward to it. We had the press conference with Daniel Farke today, which he basically said everyone's crocked, which, that's going to be the case, isn't it, in terms of the level. I think Daniel was talking about it in terms of tightness, and it's a decent narrative to push forward because it kind of makes everyone feel like they're up against it. So I can understand what he's doing there. As long as it doesn't become an excuse, then that's fine. And we'll see how they get on. But it does make for an interesting game tomorrow, in one that's already going to be fascinating because I think Steve Cooper is a very good manager. I know there are people at Norwich who think a lot of him and know him very well. And he's put together a decent side that competed really well last year, although they were probably second best to Brentford in the end, hence why they missed out on the playoffs. So, of course, they are hoping to go on better this year, and they look like they could do that. So, and they've still got a player like Andre Ayew playing up top and causing all sorts of problems. So we will see. So loads to talk about, football or otherwise. Get your thoughts in. If anyone wants to tell me to not talk about politics, that's fine as well, and do that too. And what I would flag up, I hope you caught my interview with Tom Tribal, which went live this morning. Nice to chat to him. As far as I'm aware, it's the first time he's really spoken about his Norwich exit. I'm calling it his exit, although I did specifically say, look, is this it now? Is your time over at Norwich? Because I think he's still got 2 years left and an option. So contract's a long way from being done. And I think ultimately he was like, look, my season hasn't really started yet. I'm only just getting my feet under the table here at Blackburn. I'm not even thinking about it being the end at Norwich. And as it's fair enough, because if you're contracted somewhere, you never know whether you're going to end up going back or what the situation will be. And in fairness, if Norwich get an offer for Tom in January and Tom's doing really well at Blackburn, then they may well say, look, Tom, you're going to have to head off over here, please, instead. So, and it'll be up to him whether he does or not. So there's a lot of moving parts there probably over the next few months. But it was really good to talk to him. I really like Tom a lot. I think he's a really grounded guy. I think he's quite, I can understand him being really disappointed at the fact that maybe he didn't get quite as many chances as he would have liked last year. I remember watching him in games and thinking, he could really do a job, and then others where he just looked a bit lost defensively sometimes. It was a real mixed bag because I really do like him as a player. But then he did well in games, and you kind of knew that Daniel Farke wouldn't change it then when Norwich went back to the Premier League if Tom was playing in the Cup. Yet Tom did well in the Cup games, and you knew he wouldn't get a chance. And I can imagine that being quite frustrating. He played in some really good performances as well. So yeah, it's a tricky one, that. But ultimately, it's probably the lack of sentimentality, and in a way, there was a sentimentality to the squad that got Norwich up to the Premier League and then sticking with them, and them not adapting really quickly enough, or as much as people would have hoped. So I suppose the collateral of that was this summer when 3 players who probably could have played a part at the Championship level, Daniel Farke essentially, Stuart Webber I'm sure agreed, were like, no thanks, we're just going to freshen it up, sorry. And it was almost like the other extreme, reasonably brutal, but just on a small sample size. So, and as always, the judgment will be in how it all pans out from here. So there we go. 6 minutes past 5. I've rambled, but thanks for all your questions. Keep them coming in. We're going to have an active discussion. It's going to be great. It's going to go for about 20 minutes. So 25 past 5, I'm going to be wrapping this up. Quick fire them in. I will try and talk quickly and get through them. I know I sometimes get a bit stuck on a subject, but as always, your time, your attention, the fact you're here is always greatly appreciated. Let's go. With starting off, Jerry. Good evening, Michael. Good evening, Jerry. Thank you for using an emoji in there, and it's a smiley face, which is great. I am well, thank you very much. How about a change up of personnel for tomorrow's game? Also, what did you think of the Grand Prix back at Imola? Cars looked too wide for the track. Now, there are a few tracks, quick F1 chat, that are a bit like that. I always think Suzuka's a bit like that. The wider the cars get, the narrower the track look is, and Monza too. It's probably those more classical tracks. Confession, I'm a little bit behind. Everything's been so involved in the football. I haven't been able to be as involved as I wanted to be in the NRF1 podcast this year. If you like F1 podcasts, get on that. It's brilliant. It's Norfolk's own Formula One podcast. I'm very proud of setting that up, and I will hopefully be returning to it at some point in the future. And therefore, I haven't actually seen any of the action from Imola, and I was really looking forward to it. So you've reminded me. So it's all recorded somewhere. I'll go and check it all out. What did you think of the action at Imola? Don't tell me the result, although I think I can't remember if I know it now. Just tell me like a brief précis of whether it's worth the watching time, or should I only dial into the highlights? But good question. I wish I could answer it. Sorry, Jerry. I'll do better for next time. Mix up for the personnel in the game. Well, Daniel Farke has kept his side quite consistent. I think that's because it's earlier in the season. I have asked him about how he's sort of flagging up the condition of his players. If they obviously don't want to use these red flags and things to say, look, we've looked at your data, you're not playing. They don't want to do that, but they are aware of it and speaking to the players about whether they feel good enough or not. And some of that might have filtered into the list of players who had question marks, as he put it, which I got the impression is like they're probably a bit tired and a bit tight. And it's a bit like, well, if you play then while you're tight, you could cause yourself an injury. But then who do you not play? Who could maybe get through an injury? Because some players can play through things with a better mindset than others. So it's a difficult one, and it depends who it is and how they feel, I suppose. So Ben Gibson being a doubt, that's a worry. Christoph Zimmermann is back. There is an international break coming, and no one's going away in terms of centre backs. Oh, we know Grant Hanley is, isn't he? So would you want to change it, or would you want to keep Ben in there because he's been doing very well? But then you risk losing him for several weeks. But they are playing against a very good side. It's probably that play. If it had been Millwall now, I think you maybe make a different decision. And it's obviously impossible for me to say because I haven't seen what state Ben Gibson is in. But I do think I think that there's definitely an opportunity to play some players. You just hope they're not too rusty because they won't have played a lot of minutes, and it depends on which position. So, you could definitely play Mario Vrancic from the start, and actually the game might well suit Mario from the start. And then you're not so worried then about Marco Stiepermann not being available. Josh Martin is fit enough to go on the bench, which I think is a great option. I think he would have been a great option for some of these other games. His time will come. We haven't seen him yet, but I've seen a lot of him. I thought in pre-season he was fantastic, and it's just not the right moment hasn't presented itself yet. It will, especially at this level, and we will see it, and you'll go, oh, there's Josh. So I'm looking forward to that happening. Adam Eder's back, of course, after a 3-game suspension, so he should be right as rain and fresh as a daisy and all the other cliches you can think of. So there's a few options there to bring it in, but you then probably would expect it to be slightly disjointed. Hopefully they've done a bit of preparation with that because they would have had a couple of days to maybe mix it around in terms of training. So I think there's a few options there to maybe just give some of those players who are tight a spell on the bench, because if you can then assess the game, and if it's getting for the last 20 minutes, hopefully you can make a change that's a positive impact. So yeah, changing the starting lineup at this point might well be sensible given the amount of output those players have put in. And I think I've suggested some of those options, certainly in terms of starting Mario. You could, I don't know, I think he said Kenny was okay. It was quite a long list, but I mean, you could start Kenny instead of Lucas, because Lucas did sound like he was quite a doubt. So you could start with Lucas and Ollie Skip at holding. And I think you could start Christoph at the back, but I think ideally you wouldn't want to change that position necessarily. Left back becomes an issue, obviously, without Sorensen if he's a real doubt. And so then you probably assess who's better off, because you could play Ben, Christoph and Grant and play with a 3. That might be easier. And of course, Alex Tettey is floating around as well, as he always does. So I hope that sums up the general perception. But I'm definitely up for making some changes. You just have to appreciate the disjointed nature that might bring up. Thank you for the clapping, Adam. Always appreciated it for my melodica work. I didn't get it wrong for this time, so that was a bonus. I'm going to have to come up with a different song. Recommendations, requests accepted for new melodica songs. That's a good idea. Dan Emery, hello Dan. Hope you're well. Barley Mumba and Kenny McLean, if Sorensen and Rupp are out. Yeah, I think Barley's a good option. What we know is that it was interesting that Barley came on against Bristol City, didn't he, for the last few minutes, his league debut at Championship level, I think. He was a bit over-eager, which you can kind of appreciate. I think so that's interesting. They're the sort of things that do stick with Daniel in his head. So, and I don't think he'd want to move Max from right back to left back, especially again against decent opposition. I think he'd want to minimise those changes. So he could come in at left back if Jacob's there. That's probably the most likely bet. And I think, yeah, Kenny for Lucas is kind of a like for like change that is pretty straightforward. So yeah, I think they're good calls there. What I would expect, but it does depend on how bad those doubts really are. It did sound like Lucas was a more severe doubt than Jacob, so we will see. And the others, I'm actually not convinced. I think they'll probably be all right, but that's only my hunch, and sort of having worked or observed Daniel Farker for a number of years. Max Pike, hello Max. Who do you think has been the best player for us so far this season? No, that's a good question. I mean, to me, Tim Krul has been the most consistent performer, who has outright won points by doing wonderful things, especially in recent games. I think you can tell by watching some of the City View videos that they put up. You can see from some of that interaction how important Tim is to the group. So consistently, him, I would say. I can't think of many mistakes, even small ones, that he's made. And I'm sure there are one or two, and probably Wickham actually for the goal there was one. But in general, he's won more points than he's cost. So yeah, but then goalkeepers are slightly different to outfield, isn't it? So in terms of outfield players, I think it has to be Lucas Rupp. I thought that Norwich missed him when he went off against Millwall. They lost a bit of their direction and drive from midfield. And I think, again, he's just been someone who's grown into the season. It'd be great if he could add a few goals, but I don't think anyone really expects him to do that at the club. It's not necessarily his strong suit, and he has no particular background in it. So yeah, but I think I'd like to see a few others just be a bit more consistent, because there's some wonderful talent in there. I mean, if Emi Buendia is playing at his sort of Bristol City and Brentford levels regularly, then he wins games single-handedly before we get to sort of the hour mark. So, and Tamer Pukki is bubbling along, but there's just a little bit more that you think you could get from him. And Ollie Skip, I'm really enjoying watching play and watching him sort of learn, because we are seeing that. We're seeing him having to learn in live game situations. Max has done very well. I think Ben Gibson has actually been excellent by and large, and Grant Hanley has done really well too. Grant didn't like the fact that I asked him a question about how well Tim Krul had done, and I think Grant took it in his own dry Scottish wit as a slight against his defending. But hopefully that's because he's not been reading social media. I don't think he reads what you all put. Although I'm sure he has family members that probably tell him, because that's generally how it works. So there we go. Yeah, outfield is a tricky one. And I'd like to see a few more contenders probably alongside Lucas. That would be a challenge for everyone. Good question though, Max. Of course, we're still early in the season. It's only 10 games. It's not even a quarter yet. Night shift. Are you on one? I wish you well if you are about to start one. Night shift. And what in, I guess. I mean, it could be as a key worker at the hospital. Could be a Breaking Bad sort of night shift. I don't know. I hope it's good. I hope it's a good one. Do you think Sam Mccallum or Akin for Maywell will be recalled in January? Good question. My first thought is no, because I don't get the impression Norwich like doing it. A player's been sent out for a season loan for a reason, and actually they only tend to get recalled if it's not going well, so they can find them somewhere else. So Sam Mccallum is a tricky one. I'm still not entirely convinced it was the right loan for him, to be honest, but he is starting to play now, so that's good. But no, I don't really, unless something happens with the current squad, someone picks up a real long-term injury or there's a sale. I think they're there because they're deemed to need the development time at where they are. So I would be surprised, would be my honest answer. But I've been surprised by lots of things before. Keep your questions coming in. We're on 16 minutes gone. We are halfway through our 20-minute Q&A. I am going to be tight and fastidious on time. Also, so keep your feedback coming as well. Let me know if this is a good slot. I'm trying to work out what to do in terms of future Q&As. At the moment, I do 2 independently. I'm quite tempted to do them across all channels simultaneously. So we've got Twitter, Twitch, which I'm on, I think, Periscope, obviously, Instagram, Facebook. Can we do it all together, which I know other outlets do as well? I'm trying to work it out, really, to save me time, make sure it's regular and make it a real event of it. Or do I do it only on a Wednesday evening, like the old Pinken show I used to host? Do I do a all-encompassing Q&A then? But then I quite like this post press conference Q&A slot on a Friday. I haven't decided yet, and I have finite hours, but all feedback welcome, because I'm really bad at making decisions. James Rushmore, have you written any pieces on Norwich City's first team staff members? I would imagine a lot of them have interesting backgrounds. Well, that's a lovely question, James. That depends who you mean. I mean, I wrote a piece on, not so much on their backgrounds, but more on their current jobs. That's interesting though. I'd like to know more about what you think like that. And so I think there's probably a way you can send me a message on a social media directly if you don't want to send it. I think my DMs on Twitter are open, for example, and you can message me on Facebook. So please do. I don't know what it is on YouTube, but whichever. So I did a profile on Boxing Day with the Kit Men, obviously John Boy and Pete Dye, who are great blokes. So I can't remember if it might have touched a bit on their background in that. I know a few of the guys. Did a long piece with Eddie Reamer, who of course is Daniel Farker's assistant, and a similar piece with Daniel, of course, down at Lippstadt when I was on the German tour. And I'm sure there's a few others. I've spoken to Steve Weaver a few times. There's lots of other bits on Stuart Webber that some of my colleagues have written as well at The Athletic. Simon Hughes especially did a really good piece just after we launched, actually, August 2019. So there are a few bits around, but yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, I always wonder, are people really interested in what, say, Glyn, who takes the warming up, pre-match warm-ups, do they really want to know Glyn's background and how he's got there? Or Chris Burton, the physio, who's doing a great job, by the way, like 50 million 10k runs for prostate cancer. So check that out and give him some, donate any money that you can. It's a great cause and he's doing a great job, Chris. But yeah, I'm always open for story ideas, because you guys are the ones who would read them. So I'm always interested in stories and things you'd like to read. So James, get in touch and furnish me with more details, maybe if you've got specific ideas. If not, that's definitely, I've got a massive sheet of ideas. I mean, like ridiculous, all sorts of stuff, and those sort of things are all in there. It's just a question of when to get around them, when they might work, or what to do. I am working on one Norwich City staff member. There's a piece I'm putting together, which I'm really looking forward to doing, and it might be out during the international break if I can get my backside in gear. So there you go, there's one to look forward to. Matt, good evening. My thoughts on Poiheta, Przemysław Poiheta thus far. Whilst pace is vital in any team, I feel his strengths are being frustrated at the moment because of how teams set up against us. No space behind. Yeah, I mean, I was a little bit worried about when when he came, and there did seem to be this technical a rawness to him, like a technical rawness that that meant in small spaces it was going to be quite difficult for him. But I do like what he does, especially away from home. He really helps stretch the game. I can see elements of how Norwich are starting to play him into better areas. Bless him. I mean, he's still really young, and I can see the frustration in his face when he sends a cross behind or he fires in a shot that's off target. There's nothing I can say analysing what he's doing that he's not feeling himself. And I think what I hope, and again, you could see Daniel Farke having a word in Shemik's ear as he came off the other day. You want that, and Daniel will be brilliant for this because he's proven it. Just like a nurturing quality with him to just keep confidence, allow them to make mistakes, and give them the room to develop and learn as a player, which Anel Hernandez did under Daniel in those first 2 years remarkably well. And he's an older player with more experience. Shemik hasn't got that experience under him, and it's a really big move. He hasn't got a huge amount of English. He's still trying to adapt and learn. He's only just got engaged to his fiance, judging by Instagram. So there's a lot going on. He's a really young man, really with a huge move, and I'm sure he's really excited. And he's got so much learning to do. So I think he's just got loads of potential, and I'm quite excited to see where he's at, sort of say halfway through the second half of the season. And that sort of stuff. So you can see elements of where Norwich, his teammates, are starting to learn what he wants and how to get the ball to him. And it's very different to other players on the pitch. And hopefully, it's just a shame in a way that Anel's not fit, because that would have just maybe bought him a little bit of time and respite, whereas he's having to really do the carrying the load of the pace that Norwich have in their team. Because I think they kind of need a couple of options really, so that there's no burnout. But it's also a really important option for Norwich to have in their 11, because it helps them expand the pitch and keep teams sort of on their toes with what they can do. So that's probably what I would say. He's raw and he needs some time, and it's probably doing him a bit of benefit that there's no crowd really, because they might be tempted to get on his back if some crosses were going in behind, and that sort of stuff. If it's 0-0 against Millwall and you scuff a cross out, that's annoying, isn't it? So he's just being shielded from that at the moment, which I think probably for him is quite beneficial, because all we're seeing as a pour out is his own frustration. There's nothing else really affecting that. Wendy Little, hello Wendy, hope you're well. Oh, thank you. I'm glad you like my article on Tom Tribal. If you haven't read it, you can read that on The Athletic in full as it was intended to be written. It's all there. It was lovely to speak to Tom. I think I started off by talking about Tom, didn't I? So I won't go over all that again. But yeah, definitely read it. It's really interesting. And I hope he does well at Blackburn, although I'm surprised at how much the sort of wheels have fallen off since he's been there. Not through his fault, but just that early pace they set. But I would be surprised if similar doesn't happen at Reading. It's a great start from Reading, obviously, but probably unsustainable. We'll see how it all filters out. Love the Championship. Daniel Wright, despite our form, it seems like with fitness, we need the break. Yes, I think, everyone's felt it. Norwich came up against other teams who have lost key players. Bristol City were a key one. It has been a lot. What has it been? Like 27 games in 23 days, I think I wrote. Something stupid like that. This next session will be quite similar. Just before Christmas, it starts to ease off, and then obviously Christmas is nuts again. So it's not going to stop. This 2 weeks really important. The problem is you've got players like Tim Pukki or whoever going out and playing 2 to 3 games for their international teams. It is just crazy. It is what it is. But we're going to see a lot of injuries across all sorts of teams, which is why Norwich are better off having a reasonably big squad. They are beneficial for that. Get your last few questions in. I'm not going to go over. But get your last few questions in. I'm going to rapid fire through all of these ones. Thank you so much for all your time and viewing attention. I do really, really appreciate it. Roger Lattimore, can we score 3 tomorrow? Let's score 1. 1-0 will do. But yeah, potentially. I think Swansea are a very good side. I think if Norwich come away with a win, it helps maybe just dampen some of the frustration of the Millwall lack of a win there, because that was a game they should have won. So, but Swansea's going to be a really tough game, I think. It's a really difficult one on Saturday. I'm looking forward to how they both go about it, because it should be quite reasonably open, but that means they could both cancel each other out and you end up with another goalless draw. So we will have to see. Is Jay Howard? I don't know, is it? Hello there. Any updates on Drimmitch and Leitner? Seems such a waste of money for us and waste of the talent that neither are playing here or elsewhere. Yeah, I reckon they feel that as well. But once you make a decision that you're not going to have them as part of your plans and you feel like you don't really need them, you can't really go back on it. not really. I think what I understood from Moritz's point of view was he had a bit of an issue, an injury issue, quite a long-standing one. So when a move didn't happen, he, I think, decided that he would get himself really right. I think so. It may have been a minor op or something like that. So I think he's in that situation. And then come January, probably December, he'll start trying to prove how fit he is, and then he can hopefully get out somewhere in January. Josip is tough, especially as he'd been kind of doing well, and I think he'd been a good character around the place and was probably going to play a bit in the 23s and been really good with the youngsters. But by the same token, if he plays, one of the kids can't, and if they need that 23s run to then maybe get a loan move after that, you don't really want to be playing Josip Drmic. So that's a difficult one, and that's obviously instigated some of his quotes in the week. So tough one. I feel a bit for them both, but happens, doesn't it? If Norwich were really struggling, then it becomes a bigger question. But at the moment, it just is what it is, which is tough. Jerry, just watch the highlights of Imola. Okay, I will do. Just felt a bit nostalgic. Well, that was my other point. I mean, I really wanted to see it, but I can still remember vividly what happened there in 1994 and where I was when I heard about it. So yeah, it's very strange and surreal for F1 to have gone back, and probably wouldn't have done other than these unprecedented times. So I will watch the highlights. I promise you, Jerry. Thank you for giving me the nudge as well. And this is a good slot for you in your day off. Well, good. At least it'll always be me and you then, Jerry. I do like this Friday slot. I'm trying not to do too much because there's a lot of stuff I have to do, but we'll make it happen across all the platforms, I'm sure. Matt, any concerns on our attacking decision-making ability to break teams down at present? 27 shots against Millwall the next year of only that. This tends to happen a few times already this season. Well, they were getting better. I think Millwall was a regression, but I think in fairness to Millwall, they did what they did really well and really effectively. So you have to praise them for that. I think the fact that it came under quite a long run of games, I think you could see, which again is tomorrow is quite important for that. I think if Norwich start on top, they're going to need to really make the most of it just to save them some energy later in the game, or protect them from if they do get tired and then maybe teams cancel each other out. You have to kind of make the most of it when you're on top, I think, in those situations. I mean, so Norwich had two really, really good chances. I think Emmy going through. We probably should have made the keeper work a bit harder, and Poiretta, when he struck the bottom end of the post. Lucas Rupp was a bit unlucky with his deflected shot, but then would have been lucky if it had gone in. So I think there was probably a greater progression of what Norwich were trying to do, trying to get it wide. Whether they could take more chances in the box, I think is probably a point that they could take on board. Likewise, Millwall at times almost caught between trying to force the issue and leaving too many spaces behind them, which was fascinating watching them try and sort of work out how to deal with that. So I think, I think Norwich need to get better at it, but ultimately it always comes down to just being clinical with those one or two chances that they really get. And as I've said for years, that's exactly what the point is in the Premier League. You go up, you will probably get one or two chances and you have to take one of them. And that's that, basically. That's what marks you out at that level. And they're the things you do want to see them do at this level. They've obviously got players who are inexperienced and trying to learn in certain positions, some who should know in others. So, but no chances really fell to Teemu on Saturday, on Tuesday night, I noticed. So maybe one. I think the pattern of what happened at Carrow Road is going to happen a lot. And Norwich are doing okay. I think they were getting better at it. And we'll maybe see how they go on in the next block. So I'm aware of it, but not concerned at the moment, I would probably say. Stephen Pass, hello. Seen any part of Hugo's game that you would consider impressive? Well, that's a leading question. How feels it? I'm a little bit... I really like Jordan as a person. Spoken to Jordan a few times. He's a great bloke. He's clearly having a really positive impact amongst the group. I feel like he's struggling a little bit and that Norwich aren't playing to his strengths and the ball isn't sticking when he is there to kind of hold it up. And he's sort of said that's obviously an element of his game, maybe more so than scoring goals. So I want to see that. If we're not going to see him with a real international quality goal scoring flair like Teemu Pukki, then I want to see him holding and linking the play really well. He has to be one or the other, I think. So I want to see a bit more from him. I don't want to see the ball bounce off him and then him wrestle with a defender and end up on the floor, which has happened probably once or twice too many. He probably quite likes doing that. But he's a great bloke. I think there's clearly a lot that he can bring, and it's still early days. So they're the kind of things I'd probably say on that. What I would say, though, is now that Adam Eder is back in, I would say he's definitely the one that comes on before Jordan at the moment. And although Jordan scored a really crucial penalty at Rotherham, in terms of general play, there's a bit more I'd want to see. And I don't think we've quite seen enough of it while Adam's been out. Now that Adam's back available, for me, he gets the chance to get the sort of second go after Teemu, who's presumably starting. And then we'll see where Adam is. And I think that's where we are at the moment. Owen, hello, Owen. You're on a road trip through the US. Wow. And this is wonderful to pass the time. I'm glad. On the Ball City and all that. What a time to road trip through the US. Good luck. Stay safe, regardless of what might happen over the coming days. With Ollie Skip performing so well, how do we plan on replacing him next year? Wonder if Sorensen will replace him. Thoughts? Yeah, I mean, Sorensen is definitely an issue in there. That's where he's seen. Melvin City, obviously, he's out on loan as well. I think long term, he would look to come into that role. Alex Tetty is out of contract at the end of this year. I would probably be surprised if he got another contract, but who knows? He's told me like 3 times he's retiring and leaving. So, and Ollie is an interesting one, because if Norwich went up, I could see there being a temptation for him to spend the season at Norwich in the Premier League, because that would represent probably a good chance for him to get another season under his belt, when Jose probably wouldn't necessarily parachute him straight into his side. They do really like Ollie, but he's really keen on playing. So I think that could work out really well. So we will see on that one. So in a way, the replacement might come from him not being here, but then that might therefore already be in the building in terms of Sorensen or City, or someone else that they decide to bring in. It's a good question. Interesting one. Rapidly running out of time. Obviously, I've gone over because I always do. But thank you for the question, Owen. Enjoy your road trip. North Yorkshire Canary, or NYC, as I like to call you. I hope you're well. Were the club right to send McCallum out on loan? Can he be recalled? He can be recalled in January 2021, I think you mean. Yeah, there you go. I just read it. And so he can be, like all the loans, I think they all allow a recall during the transfer window in the middle. Were they right to send him out on loan? I can't really answer that now, because I think we'd have to answer it afterwards. I think if he gets the game time at Coventry, then that's the key thing. If he wasn't getting the regular game time and wasn't here, I think that's a major issue. I think he went there when Coventry had already recruited a lone player from Wolves to play left back, who by all accounts is a very, very good player as well. So that made me sort of think, well, I don't know how that works, because is Sam still going to play? So as long as he's getting good minutes at championship level for the first time, and he's still a young lad, then that's really good. So I wouldn't say it was a wrong move at the moment, but I am keeping an eye on it. Chris Baker, are Norwich missing Hernandez? Yes, but not as much as has had Shemi Pochetta not been here. Then I think it'd have been a bit of a disaster, because Norwich desperately need that pacey outlet to stretch the game. Otherwise, it all gets a bit samey. And I think at times that was what they lacked in the Premier League as well. So it'll be good when he's back fit and hopefully gets back to a good level of output and performance. Round Wolf, I'm a bit concerned about the game without Rups, Stiepermann and the left back, but happy Eder is back and Pukki looks sharp. Agreed. Night Shift, not answer my question. Would you break the bank to permanently sign Skip if we did go up? I don't think Tottenham would sell. Like, what amount are we talking here? If we're talking about breaking the bank, we're probably talking about an amount Norwich wouldn't pay, especially for, as talented and as good as he is, a player who hasn't played in the Premier League. So you're breaking the bank, but I mean, where does that level come at? And bearing in mind, Tottenham are not easy to do deals with, and certainly in terms of getting a bargain. So no. And I think he's really highly thought of at Spurs as well. So I just don't see that happening. But I do like him as a player, and it's will be fascinating watching him develop over the course of this season, and where Norwich go with him as well. And finally, for tonight, thank you so much, everyone. Thingies at the ready. No song requests, I noticed. Ed Evans, hello, or Ivans. I've gone a bit Adam Eder there, haven't I? Ed Ivans. Daniel Farker is saying he's worried that football is heading in the wrong direction, as in COVID. He was saying we all need 5 subs. Do you agree with him? Yeah, I was surprised he said that, actually. It's quite forthright from Daniel. He's not normally big on that. He's obviously decided to say it when Norwich are going well, and he made that point that these are the things I want to say when things are going well, because if you say them when things are going badly, people tend to think you're using it as an excuse or sour grapes. So I fully appreciate that. I think it plays into Norwich's situation that they have a stronger squad than a lot of Championship sides. So in the same way that most of the bigger clubs in the Premier League last year wanted 5 subs and bigger squads, you could understand why Norwich would want that at Championship level. They've got a bigger, higher quality squad than most sides. Of course, they want to be able to bring on 5 substitutes, especially when a lot of players are out. So you could then just name a few on the bench just in case. So it doesn't surprise me that he said it in terms of the actual what the content was. I'm glad that he clarified when he was saying it. I'm maybe slightly surprised that he made it as a point, but I don't envisage it being something that necessarily changes. Although, by the same token, we are in a position that is basically the same as it was during Project Restart, and therefore you kind of have to say, should it not still be the same? But there we go. It's not, and much like the world we live in at the moment, nothing makes sense. But there we go. Thank you so much for all your questions. Really appreciate it. Sean Marshall-Nichols throws a late one in. Would you start Zimbo and put Gibson at left back tomorrow? No, I probably wouldn't. I'd hope Sorensen is fit, but we'll see. We'll see what Daniel does. I'll bring you the team news at 2:00 tomorrow. You can follow my updates on Twitter as usual. We have an Athletic discussion page on the match, as we do for every Norwich City match. Just head over to theathletic.co.uk. And also I link to that on Twitter over the course of the match tomorrow. There'll be a piece on the match as well. If you haven't read my Tom Tribal interview, read that. If you haven't read my Tim Krul interview from a few weeks ago, read that. Or my piece with the under-23s that were released and finding new clubs, read that. So much brilliant content. Not just from, well, I'm calling my own content brilliant here, aren't I? So many great pieces. I have so much amazing colleagues. There is some amazing journalism on there. And then you can also read the stuff I've written on Norwich City. But it's all there. It's all, we don't bother calling anything exclusive because it just is, everything on there is us. So if you haven't subscribed yet, I obviously would recommend you do. Either way, you know where you can follow me on here. Make sure you subscribe to the channel so you get known when this is happening. Likewise, I might well see you on Facebook, but I am off for 2 weeks after today. I will be at Middlesbrough in a week, in 2 weeks' time, but I am going to try and bunker down and catch up on some sleep. A bit like Marco Stiepermann and his bad neck and his bad back. I'm just going to try and take a break from all the football. Thank you all again. Much love. Take care of yourselves, and I'll leave you with another only a quick bit. There you go. I'll come up with a new song at some point. Recommendations and requests always taken. In the meantime, take care of yourself. Fingers crossed for tomorrow. Good night.